Hello, my name is Michael Scott. Um, I'm student teaching in a fifth grade classroom. I'm teaching math, reading, science, and social studies. Um, I think one of the questions is a description of how technology can be used to create better learning opportunities for all students. We use a lot of technology in the classroom when it comes to every student has a Chromebook. That for math we use a lot for like IXL, or we can also use Prodigy. Um, for reading, we do a lot of stuff on Schoology, like uploading assignments on there that they can complete. Um, and for science and social studies, we do a lot of videos, interactive type videos, with people describing, like we just did the Revolutionary War, and um, you know, I use a lot of for social studies. Liberty Kids. Liberty Kids is pretty cool that the kids really enjoy, and they're only 20 minutes long, which is super nice. Um, Also with math, I've used a lot of, well, actually for all subjects I've used a lot of like to kind of strength after a lesson to strengthen to see what the students gained from that lesson. I've used like Kahoots or quizzes or Gimkits, which is really useful, and it's a fun way for kids to kind of interact with each other on a platform, and I can see what their scores are, or how many kids are getting a question wrong or something like that, and we can kind of pause and talk about it at the same time. Um, let's see the ways in which your teaching philosophy has developed and grown throughout your student teaching. Um, like I was a para for about 4 years in sixth grade, and I worked a lot on like one-on-one or small groups, also big class settings. But I think that my philosophy has kind of changed when it comes to dealing with an entire class on your own instead of being a para, because I dealt with a lot of kids that were like lower, and so my philosophy, in a sense, I was very much on like um, you had to make sure like every kid stayed together, and we had to like work together as a group. And what I've kind of realized is there's a lot of different types of students and their learning capabilities, and um, what I've and sometimes it's okay to let the more advanced students kind of go off on their own. Like once you get done with a lesson, to let them kind of go off on their own and maybe do assignments or like on together, and while you work with the rest of the class, and maybe break it down into like three different groups, so you're kind of like hitting the rest of the class or doing a lesson with the class. All of the higher students that got it are kind of going off on their own with assignments, and you kind of have assignments planned for them. And then the middle group and lower group, you kind of work together, and then you kind of let the middle group kind of go on and do the same off on their own, and then you work more with the lower group to try and get them to catch up in a sense, or maybe they need more specified help. Um, like my philosophy was always like I thought when you became like a main teacher, you would have to you, you kind of had to stay as a group, and I've kind of realized it kind of works better just letting it kind of shake out, in the sense of maybe do a lesson, give an exit ticket, get the scores from the exit ticket. The kids who did really well on it, they don't really need to hear all that information again. The kids that didn't do well on it probably do need to hear that information in a different way. And then you can kind of test them as you're doing that, maybe with problems like, hey, let's do this. All right, here's this problem or something. And then if they do well on it, awesome, and then they can kind of go off on their own. And then the ones that don't, which there's always like two or three students, especially in my class right now, that like just need kind of like almost their hand held through the entire thing. But and then so yeah, my philosophy in that sense is it's just it has changed since the very beginning, which is kind of cool to see. And I was very nervous doing it. My cooperating teacher kind of brought it up and was like, "Hey," because I brought it up to her, and I was like, my higher students are kind of like giving me glazed eyes because they're sick of hearing this and they already know it, and I'm going really slow for all the other kids. And she was like, "Just try letting them go off on their own," and it worked. It really did well, and I really liked it. Strategies for implementing the Christian worldview, values, and compassion, promote human and flourishing, all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I struggle with in my class is kids being kind to each other. We have a lot of like not bullies per se, but we just have a lot of like nasty attitudes and kids that just don't treat each other well. And I haven't really thought of anything like that I can do in a public education setting that's like fine, but I mean, it's just like you just kind of keep telling them like if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all. Like it just doesn't need to be said. If you don't like a certain person, maybe we just don't talk to that certain person. And things like that. I haven't really come up with anything, and same with my cooperating teacher. She hasn't really come up with anything that has worked, and it's just the group of kids are just they're kind of brutal to each other, and it's not fun to see. It's not cool to see. You just stop it in its tracks. You try to, but at the same time, you can't be with them at recess and gym and explore and music and art, and that's when a lot of these things happen, and then they bring it back into the classroom. But I don't know. You can kind of I just keep telling them, if you don't have anything nice to say to somebody, maybe you ignore them. Like, just don't. There's just nothing to say. But yeah, and like in a public education setting, we can't really go through God or anything like that. Like that's just a no. But you can just kind of same thing I do with my kid. Like you just teach them, you try and teach them that how to be nice to each other, what you should do, and you hopefully they pick it up. If they pick it up, that's great, that's awesome. And a lot of times I feel like it doesn't get picked up, but I feel like you just try and do what you can. Thank you.